Now the reason I'm going to take the wing off here is I want to be able to show you the grease points, which are, although they are accessible and you don't have to take the wing off to do them, if we take the wing off from the panels you can actually see where we're actually going to put the grease, and we'll also have the wheel off as well. So here we have the inner splash guard, and in it has got two bungs which you take out to gain access to the grease nipples underneath. What we're going to do is take off the panel completely just so you can show what is actually going on under there, but it's perfectly possible for you to grease all the grease nipples with the wing still in place. It's just this shows access. You can't take this panel off without having taken the wing off first, because you won't be able to get access to this top fixing. Citroën have designed it in that way, I'm presuming for a reason. So what we've got is we've got two screws on this side, which are slightly awkward to get at, particularly the top one, which I'm just going to slacken the top one. And then the front of the panel is held on with these three M5 bolts. In this case there's one missing on this car, but we'll fit it when we come to put the panel back on. Here we go. That's leaving it such that it's just held in with the screw at this end. And the panel just lifts off, unhooks from the top, revealing the front suspension in all its glory. Under the bungs on the outer panel, this is the first grease nipple that you'd see when you take the bung off, and the other one is this one here, which is greasing the bearing for the anti-roll bar. The third one is this bung here in the bottom triangular panel, is under here, so you bring that one from underneath. So these two are the anti-roll bar ball joints, and that is the anti-roll bar pivot, which is pivoting on the main structure of the suspension arms. So the other grease nipples are one for here for the top hub joint, there's another one for the bottom hub joint, and the third one on the drive shaft here. The drive shaft grease nipple greases the joints, the hook joints in the middle of the drive shaft, and you will probably have to put more grease through these ones than either of the other ones. So that's your 6 grease nipples on each side, 12 in total, and each of those needs to be done at the 3,000 mile services every time. Right, so now we'll just put some grease into the grease nipples. We'll start with this one. So this gun I'm only going to put in about 4 shots, if you like, because that's all they need. You could see the boot expanding as grease goes into the nipple, into the joint, shall I say. Here we go. And on the drive shaft one, I would want to put in about 10 to 20 pumps, because they are greasing many more separate joint bearings in the joint. That will do. And now this would be the one that has access through the panel, and you can see the grease coming out as I pump it in. And moving down to the anti-roll bar pivot point, I'll just give that about 5 pumps. Again, this is a plain bearing joint down here, and these are ball joints. Okay, so for the lower joint, which I need to grease, I need to pop out the bung first, and come in from underneath. And again, about 5 squirts of grease, and you can see the grease coming out. Pop the grease gun off, which it doesn't want to, and replace the bung. Much easier when you can actually see what you're doing. And that's all the grease joints, the grease nipples greased. Now we can put the cover back on. And the cover plate has a lip on the bottom edge which supports this rubber joint between the lower panel and the upper panel, and it needs to fit above the suspension arm up here, and it all gets aligned, and then fit the screws, probably the top one first, roughly. And now the fun bit of fitting bolts. Now, the bolts have elongated slots in the panel, which means that once you've got at least one of them in, you can raise the panel up slightly to secure it in position, and then tighten the bolts. And the second bolt. One of the very useful tools that you may need is a magnet on a stick, which should actually have a Citroen part number, because you're constantly dropping nuts and bolts and finding it impossible to pick them up and getting them to align. As you can see, I'm struggling in this, and we've got the wing off and the wheel off. I can actually see what I'm doing, but it's still tricky. So, fitting in the top screw, secure the panel, and finally the top bolt at the front of the panel. And once you're happy they're all nice and tight, that's the job done. And now we can refit the wheel.